Welcome, class. My name is Joe Melody, and this is your very first video to go with the Capstone course here at Mount San Antonio College. I'm doing this video because I'm not sure whether we're going to be online or offline, but whether we're online or offline, it really doesn't matter. This video is something you'll be able to refer to as we go through the course, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a rundown of everything that we're going to be talking about as we proceed through the course. So I think it's going to be really, really valuable, and I hope you enjoy it. For me, it's a huge experiment. This is not something I'm used to doing, but it's something that I've always wondered if it might be effective. So let's do it, and then you'll tell me. So this is a capstone course, which means that we're going to bring everything to bear that you have already learned over the course of your time here at Mount San Antonio. And that's going to include the performance elements that you've learned. It's going to include really everything that you've learned up to this point. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to tie this together with what I think is the most important part of your college experience, which is how do you monetize your art? You know, we've all been there. I was just like you. I went through film school years and years ago. And, quite frankly, I had what I call the oh crap moment. That oh crap moment usually happens around the end of your sophomore or junior year, where you wake up at 3 in the morning and you say, oh my God, how am I going to make a living with everything that I'm learning? I love what I'm doing. I probably would do it for free. That's how much I love it. But the fact of the matter is, we're not in this to work for free. And so the Capstone course is going to be a place where, I guess you could say, commerce intersects with art. Now, for those of you who love what you're doing and you would do it for free, and I've had students like this, you may come to me, as students have, and you may say, I just love making music, creating art so much that I don't want to make money with what I'm doing. I just want to do it and have people experience it. And to people like you, and there are many of you, so what I would say is, well, suppose Mozart had felt that way. Would he have composed as many sonatas as he composed? Remember, he may have wanted to do concertos. He may have wanted to do more symphonies. But he did a lot of sonatas. Why did he do that? Well, I think you know the answer. The answer is he did it because he was asked to do it for money. People came to him and said, hey, I love that sonata that I just heard. Would you compose one for me? And if you do, I'll pay you. And so he did what he did for his art, but he also did it to make a living. And I think that that's something that we're all interested in achieving. And so this course is going to really be based on the assumption that you already are an artist, but it's also going to be based on the reality that at the age of whatever you are, 20, 21, 22, who knows, there is a good possibility that you are not going to be making your primary living as a performer or as a creator. And so you may say, well, I spent all of this time, I spent money, I sacrificed, I lived in my parents' basement, and now you're going to tell me that I may not be a creator. Well, I mean, on some level, we're all creators. I'm making this video for you right now, so I'm a creator. Not a good one necessarily, but I'm a creator. And so you might say to yourself, so why did I do this? Why did I go through all this? Why didn't somebody tell me sooner that I may not be a creator? You know, young men in high school that are fabulous basketball or football players, baseball players. You know, their parents, they may say, oh, I want my son or daughter to be a professional athlete. Well, you know, that's all well and good. But I think we all know the reality that you can be the best basketball player in your high school, in your college, in your region of the country, but you may never have a job playing basketball. You may never make a dime playing basketball because there's so few positions available. And that is true in all of the arts. I hate to refer to sports as an art, but it is an art. You know, the ability to, you know, hit a lot of home runs or pitch no-hitters or you know, be a quarterback, you know, who always wins. All of these things are an art. The ability to write a screenplay, to write a song, to play an instrument, to sing. There's some beautiful singers out there that don't make a living singing. And so you say, well, why am I doing this? What's the point? Well, as one who has gone through it, now you may not, well, I know you don't know how I started, but the way I started is I thought I was going to be a violinist because when I was 6 years old, my uncle Paul, who was in the military and he was stationed over in Germany, he sent me a violin. Well, you know what? When somebody sends you a violin, your mother or your father or your parents or whoever, they say, well, he ought to learn how to play the violin. And so I did. I wasn't very good for a long period of time. But when I got into my early teens, I was inspired by one of my classmates who actually was a very, very fine violinist. And I thought, I could be a fine violinist too if I just worked really, really hard. And so at the age of 14, 15, I started practicing 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I, became affiliated with various orchestras. I did some solo work, not much, but I did a little bit. I was in some string quartets. I got paid, to be in opera orchestras. And it was like really, really cool, except if I made $100 a week playing the violin, that was a good week. And so it soon became obvious to me that I probably was not going to be a professional violinist. And if there had been any doubt in my mind, I had a violin teacher when I was 16, 17. It was my last year of high school. And he basically sat me down after a month when I had not practiced. There was a story behind that. I hadn't practiced because my mother was in the hospital that month. Nothing ultimately serious, but, I was just a kid. I was worried. And so he sat me down and he said, look, when you're a professional musician, your job is to practice. That's your job. And there are going to be many, many things over the course of your life that are going to interfere with that responsibility. But you have to practice. You have to, every single day. What they say is if you don't practice one day, you know it. If you don't practice 2 days, your stand partner in the orchestra knows it. If you don't practice 3 days, the audience knows it. So I hadn't practiced for 30 days. I can only imagine what he thought of my playing at that point. But anyway, he sent me on my way, and I decided to go into film school. I decided to go into film school because, well, let's face it, I loved music, and films use a lot of music. So it was a good opportunity for me to, in a way, have my cake and eat it too. I could be a filmmaker, and I could use music. So that was how I made my transition from music into motion pictures. And so, in a way, what was the reason of devoting all of that time to music all of those years? Well, at that point in my life, the reason was because this is going to inform my motion picture career. I know a lot about music. Music is very important in movies. I'm going to use what I know about music to make better movies. And so I went through the film program at Temple University in Philadelphia. And, I learned during that time that really there is a bit of a disconnect. Yes, I loved music, but movies are their own art form. And I got to that period when I was a junior where I woke up and I said, I'm living here in Philadelphia, and I have a motion picture degree. I have a filmmaking degree from a film school in Philadelphia. So, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to make a living? And of course, when you go to film school, they teach you how to be a director, a producer. The university I went to didn't seem to care much about writing because it was a documentary film school. But of course, even in the world of documentaries, writing is critical. And so I started looking for jobs. I didn't. My last year of college was not spent studying. It was spent looking for jobs. Maybe some of you have gone through that exact same experience. If you have, or if you think you might, it wouldn't surprise me. And so what did I find out? I found out that if I was going to have a career in the motion picture business, I couldn't be on the East Coast. I needed to go to California because California is a company town. That's where all of the movies, really 90% of the movies in the world were produced. It's kind of like if I had wanted to build automobiles, where would I have gone? I would have gone to Detroit, because Detroit is where you go when you want to build automobiles. But I was in the motion picture business, so I went to California, and I learned that I think it's something we all learn. I could play the violin, but I wasn't going to be a violinist. I could make movies. I thought I had made some reasonably good movies when I was in college. But it soon dawned on me that I might not be a filmmaker. I might not be a producer, writer, director. So the question was, so what am I going to be? What am I going to do in this industry, and why have I spent all of the time learning how to play the violin, learning how to make movies, learning how to edit movies, learning everything involved in music and movies? Why, if I'm not going to use it for a job? And looking back from where I am today, I can tell you that I know the answer. Because when you're informed as a creator, either in music or in motion pictures or in painting or in writing of novels or any of the arts, it sets you up emotionally, intellectually, and in so many other ways that you can't even define, to be in the support side of all of those art forms. And so I've known painters, very good painters, by the way, who have become curators at museums. Is that a bad job? No, that's a great job. Is it interesting? Yes, it's very interesting. If you're a painter, does it keep me from painting? No, it does not keep me from painting. I paint all the time. I paint on the weekend. I've known writers who they may turn their writing to working inside a larger organization. Let's face it, corporations and all organizations, they need somebody to message their mission. And so if you're a great writer, maybe you aren't going to use it to write novels initially or primarily. Maybe you'll be writing novels on the side, but it sets you up to be able to sit down and work in an organization where you create the messaging and the media that that organization needs. If you are a musician, if you're a talented musician, if you're a musician that can write songs, and if you can perform, and if you understand emotionally what it feels like to stand up in front of an audience and perform music, either that you've written or that somebody else has written, that sets you up for hundreds of jobs and positions supporting the artists that just happen to click with the general public. You know what? We can't all be Lady Gaga. We can't all be John Bon Jovi. Maybe I'm dating myself. But the fact of the matter is that Lady Gaga, Bon Jovi, Madonna, Cher, you name it, they have Elton John. They have fairly large organizations of fairly well-paid individuals who all love music, and many of whom are able to perform music, but that's not what they do. They make their living supporting the artists that the public is interested in seeing and listening to. In the case of professional sports, a fabulous high school, college basketball player may not be able to play in the NBA, but could you work in the business office of the Lakers? Well, yes, you could, and it might be a $250,000 a year job. It might be a $500,000 a year job. You might be like Mark Cuban. You might buy a sports franchise someday, and the very fact that you understand what it feels like to be out on the basketball court in front of spectators, it's going to make you that much smarter in the world that you're trying to enter. And so this course is designed to get you to look at all of it and to get you to really leave this school and this program with an understanding of where you probably are going to ultimately fit in, regardless of where you would love to fit in. And there is no reason to put this love of where you would like to fit in to one side. You still have time, but you're not going to be a failure if you're not on the top 40, or if you're not performing at a large venue with your own music. You're going to you might transition into something that you find a little bit more stable, sustainable, and yet will give you an opportunity to use the skills that you've learned through this program and, of course, through life, because all of you must be doing this in your free time as well as in your school time, or else you wouldn't be here, right? So let me pivot to a few things that we're going to deal with in the course. I've got my trusty whiteboard here. And my whiteboard is my crutch, because without it, well, who knows? So I'm going to show you what I've got here. I've written the most important overriding concept of what we're going to be studying at the top of the board. Competitive advantage. Competitive advantage. Now, most people think, and logically so, that a competitive advantage is like a good thing that you have. If you're a business and you have a competitive advantage, well, what does that mean? It means Well, I've got the best talent, got the best technology, I've got the best marketing, I've got the best product, I've got the best of the best of the best of the best, and therefore I have not just one competitive advantage, I've got many competitive advantages. And if that's what you think competitive advantage means, you would be wrong. So let's get started with the one thing I want you all to just burn into your brain. The definition of competitive advantage for the purposes of this course means you make more money than the average competitor in your industry. You may say, huh? How does that work? I've got like all these competitive advantages. I mean, what difference does it make if I make money? Well, you may say you have competitive advantages, but do you? How do you know you have a competitive advantage if it doesn't show up as a financial benefit for the company? If I was in class right now, I'd be looking for hands and that sort of thing. But we're not in class. So I'm going to tell you that competitive advantage is always a financial metric, because when you earn as a company more money than your average competitor, it opens up a tremendous amount of opportunities for you as a company. What it means is that you have more money to reinvest in improving your business. If you're losing money, where do you get the resources to hire that next, great talent that you need? Where do you get the money to improve your technology? Where do you get the money to really to market your company? Remember, marketing sometimes is the key to creating a perception of differentiation, which is another way that you can boost your revenue. So competitive advantage means you make more money than the average competitor in your industry. Okay? So starting from that overriding premise, I want to go to couple of the most important aspects of business that are often overlooked, particularly in our business, the entertainment business, but they are so important. And let me just write them down, because that's why I brought this whiteboard. I want to use it. Vision and mission. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard these terms before. Don't underestimate the importance to business, to a successful business. If you don't have a sense of what your vision is, then you really don't know where you're going. It's literally like going on a trip. You don't have a roadmap. You don't know where you're going to end up. And so, you get in the car thinking you're going to go see beautiful vistas from the Rockies, and you end up in Pacoima. If any of you live in Pacoima, I apologize. But the power of vision is it gives you an opportunity without any initial cost, to say, where am I going to take this business over the next 10, 20, or 30 years? I'm going to give you an example of vision. Toyota refers to themselves as a leader in mobility. Now, we all know Toyota makes cars and trucks, but in their vision statement, they say they're going to be a leader in the future in mobility. Well, what does that tell you? that tells you that they don't know how mankind is going to travel over the next 100 years. We may have automobiles, we may not. We may have transporters where we're flying around. We may be beamed up the way that we're in Star Trek. They don't know. But what they're saying is that their vision is that if people are being beamed various places, they're going to be the leader. They're going to be the Uber beamers. That's what they're going to be. And that is their vision. Okay? Vision is so important when it comes to strategies, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. but just the short story about vision that I want you to remember at this moment. Vision is long term. Okay, it describes a future state of your business. It does not describe the present state. We all know what the present state is. We don't care about the present state. We care about what's going to be happening with your business over the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay? So keep that in mind. Vision is going to really be the guiding principle for your company. Okay? Now, the more immediate side of this concept is the mission statement. Now, a mission statement is a lot different. A mission statement tells your employees and your clients what is your criteria for success. And that would be a present day criteria. And so in my mission statement at Smart Post Sound, if I say in my mission statement, we work as accountable partners with the creators who entrust us with their projects to bring the most innovative sound track experience that we are accountable for, I've put a lot of supercharged words into my mission statement. I've brought accountability. I've referred to clients as partners. I've used the word entrust, which means that we understand that the clients that work with us are trusting us with their projects. And it goes on and on and on, but it is all based on a current state, a current philosophy. And it tells our clients that if you're not experiencing accountability, then we're not fulfilling our mission statement. And by accountability, what do I mean? I mean, we don't point fingers. You didn't tell us that you wanted a good sound for that automobile. Well, that's not accountability. The client shouldn't have to tell us if they want a good sound for anything. The client should expect that we will either produce the good sound or we will ask them, we'll let them preview what we're thinking of, and that we will make adjustments based on their feedback. Okay, that's accountability. We're not going to build up overtime and other costs in the pursuit of their vision and in the pursuit of creating their soundtrack. What we're going to do instead is we're going to work off the clock if we have to, but if at the very least, if we think that there's going to be an additional charge, we're going to let them know before that charge occurs. And I could go on and on and on, but that's our mission. Our mission is rooted in the experience that the client is going to have here today. Vision, we're not rooted in that. Vision, you could say we're going to, we want to create the most innovative soundtrack creation experience on the planet. Okay, that's kind of simplistic, but that is more of a vision statement. Mission is more down in the weeds. Okay, so hopefully you understand where I'm going with that. Okay, going back to my whiteboard. I've got this earpiece thing here. It's really annoying, but whatever. Okay. So, when you go to business school, as I did, you go there, you think, I need to go to business school and I need to pay a lot of money because business is so complicated. I need to be around smart people who are going to tell me what the hell I should know. Okay? And this is particularly true when it comes to strategy. Okay? So when you go to business school, you think, okay, I'm going to learn about all of the strategies, all the business strategies that are out there because it's only a 3-year course, but I'm going to learn about probably 100,000 different strategies. I'm certainly going to learn about thousands. Well, at least I'm going to learn about hundreds. I'm going to learn about a lot of strategies, okay? So after I had signed up and gotten involved at Pepperdine University, started taking their courses. So imagine my surprise when I found out that there are 3 strategies. There's really only 2, but there are 3. The first one I hope I spelled it right. Sometimes when I'm writing for others, I'm not so good. The first one is differentiation. Okay? Differentiation. Differentiation means that you are creating products that are so unique, products or services that are so unique that the consumers will overpay for them because they've never seen anything like it before. Now, we can all think of one company off the top of our heads and that does that. That's what they do. That's what they're known for. Anybody want to raise their hand? Okay, no, I can't see you, but I know somebody raised their hand. So the company is Apple. Apple pursues a differentiation strategy. How do we know? Well, we know that they charge up to $1,000 for a cell phone that costs them probably about $150 to $200 to manufacture, and they don't do it because that's how much labor and materials go into that product. They do it because Apple has sold them on the idea that we are going to change your life with our products. Okay? So Apple is a pure differentiation strategy. To some degree, any company that produces something that is designed to quote unquote change your life is pursuing a differentiation strategy. So for instance, the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company, they're going to bring good things to life. Well, when you bring good things to life, that's one of their taglines. When you bring good things to life, that is a differentiation premise. You don't bring good things to life on the cheap because we already know we don't like cheap things. So if we're going to bring good things to life, it's going to be a differentiation strategy. Most media manages to sell a differentiation strategy. Okay? But there is another strategy which is much more common. It's the one that most of us, including me, live with on a day in, day out basis. It's called low cost okay. Everybody see that? low-cost leader. Low-cost leader. Low-cost leader as a strategy means that your mission is to deliver goods and services that are very common and are desired. We all know what they are, but you deliver them more economically, and you deliver, or as a result, you're able to sell them more cheaply. Okay. Now, the company that comes to mind for a low-cost leader is Walmart or Amazon. But Walmart is one of the biggest. They were the first low-cost leader company because what is their mission statement? Their mission statement is lower prices every day. Now, there are two ways. Well, first of all, let me back up. So, differentiation and low-cost leader, the two strategies, they encompass the two ways that we attain a competitive advantage in any industry. What are the two ways? Number one, this would be differentiation. We do different things. Different things. We don't do what everybody else is doing. We do different things. So when Tesla decided to go into the automotive business, they didn't create a combustion engine automobile and put it out on the market with some bells and whistles, right? They basically did different things. So yes, it's a car, it's an automobile, but it's something beyond that. It's something that is going to materially change the life of the people that purchase that automobile. And in so doing, that's a differentiation strategy. People are going to buy a Tesla because they also want to telegraph to the world that they are environmentally responsible. And guess what? They're willing to pay more money in order to have that experience. And so an automobile, I had a Tesla. It was over $100,000. Driving it, I felt like it was a $30,000 automobile. But I was broadcasting to the world that I was environmentally and technologically advanced. And unfortunately, I just didn't care as much as I probably should have, but whatever. I recycle, so what have you. So that's number one. That's the number one way that we attain a competitive advantage. We do different things. The number two way, and this is low-cost leader, we do the same things, but we do them better. Okay, think about that. We do the same things, but we do them better. Now, which one do you think is more common? Well, obviously, low-cost leader is more common because once we understand the universe in which we're working, it's very easy to sit back and say, what could we do to improve this experience in a way that would make us more money? Okay? So you have two kinds of activities that feed into these two strategies. One is what we call product R&D, and the other is process R&D. So product R&D, I think, speaks for itself. Hey, let's go and create a cool thing. Okay, we see that around us with Apple. In the world that we live in today, this technological world, it is very, very common, right? So that would be product R&D. Process R&D, on the other hand, it flies under the radar, okay? All of a sudden, something that we were used to paying X amount of dollars for, there's sort of a knockoff product that is cheaper. In the smartphone world, that would be Samsung. So You've got Apple with the iPhone, differentiation. Samsung, they piggyback on the innovation of Apple, and they come up with less expensive processes to produce the same telephone. Now, I think we can all relate to this because I think we've all seen it in action over the years, but it will not surprise you to know that Apple has 10% of the worldwide smartphone market, but it captures 90% of the smartphone profit. Samsung has 90% or somewhere in that area, but they capture 10% of that profit. So that's a volume move. They are just churning phones out. Is that a bad thing? Well, it really isn't, because R&D, product R&D, that's tough. That's tough. You have to know that you're going to be able to deliver an extraordinary product. And you don't know that until you're finished doing the R&D. And how many billions of dollars is that going to cost? Drug companies are in the same boat. We need a cure for the coronavirus. That's a differentiation strategy. You don't do that by coming up with less expensive methods and processes in order to get to the end result. You get to that drug by putting all of your resources into the ingenuity and brain power of the people that know how to create drugs. That's a differentiation strategy. I would argue that you are going to probably, at least at the beginning of your career, you're going to wind up, and I say wind up advisedly, because there's no winding up. If you're successful, you're successful. Amazon is not a wind-up company. Amazon is hey, this was a great idea. Even if they make a penny profit per product, with billions and billions of products, they make lots and lots and lots of money. So, but you're likely to wind up looking for better ways, cheaper ways to achieve something that people have already said that they would like to have. Okay? So that's differentiation and low-cost leader. Now, the third strategy, it's actually a third and a fourth, but let's just call it a third, is focus. Okay? Focus. So, okay. Now, interestingly enough, if you're in the entertainment business, music business, any of the arts, you're more or less automatically in a focus strategy. You're either in focus differentiation or you're in focus LCL, low-cost leader, because you're in what we call a niche industry. With me, I'm in the post-production sound business. So that, by definition, that's a niche business. You can't go out into the public square and have somebody say, so what do you do? And so you say, well, I have a business that designs sound effects and edits dialogue and ADR for television shows. They'll look at you like, huh? Most people don't even know that's a job. So that is a focus strategy. It's not like what Amazon does. It certainly is not like what Apple does, where they're producing products for the general public. Okay? So, but for the purposes of this class, we're going to simplify it to differentiation and low-cost leader, because let's face it, in our universe, it's all about music, sound effects, audio. That's the world that we live in. Some of it is differentiation, and some of it is going to be LCL. There's a story just to round out the LCL model. Walmart, they've always been striving to bring low prices to their customers. And they're very famous for something that most people wouldn't know. They're the ones who got, I think it was Procter and Gamble, to stop shipping their roll-on deodorant in a cardboard box. Roll-on deodorant used to come in a cardboard box. It didn't have a front on it so you could see the deodorant, but it was in a box. And the executives at Walmart said, the box is a problem because having the deodorant in a box, that takes shelf space, and we don't like it. And so they went to Procter & Gamble and said, so what is the box worth? Procter & Gamble said 5 cents. They said, okay, if you can eliminate the box, you can keep 3 cents, and we want 2 cents that we're going to pass on to our consumers. Can you do that? Well, Procter & Gamble wasn't sure that they could because, the complication was, how are we going to ship, these, millions of units of deodorant without a box? The box actually was a stabilizer for all of those roll-on deodorants. But they figured it out. And Walmart reduced the price of their roll-on deodorant by 2 cents. And by so doing, they put $60 million a quarter. That means they did it 4 times a year, a quarter into the pockets of their shoppers who obviously spent it, a lot of it at Walmart, but they spent it in the general economy. So really, when you reach what we call scale, LCL, when it's done well, is really a very powerful tool. And when you talk about differentiation, one of the things that Walmart is in the process of trying to do, because for some reason nobody wants to be the low-cost leader. So Walmart has tried to pivot to say, what we've done by eliminating packaging is really making us one of the preeminent green corporations in the world. And they're not wrong, but that's a differentiation strategy. Why? Because if you are one of the preeminent green companies in the world, people will pay extra in order to help the planet. They'll pay you more because you're responsible. So you see that when a company uses LCL, low-cost leader, well, they then can pivot. They certainly can pivot against their competitors because there's no question about it that there are many LCL companies that do exactly what Walmart does. Amazon would be the current winner. So, moving on, we're going to get into tactics. Tactics, there are millions. There are millions of tactics. A tactic is really a pricing strategy. It may be temporary. We see it all the time. Hey, let's drop our price to move inventory, or let's drop our price to get people excited about this new product, or let's have a special offer. So tactics are really where business lives. That's what you do. If you're pursuing a differentiation strategy like Apple does, that's not going to change. You're going to keep pursuing a differentiation strategy. You're going to take a huge amount of the money that you make, right? They have a competitive advantage. They can do that. And you're going to use it to continue the story about Apple, which is brand new products that change people's lives. But in the case of even Apple, okay, when they get saturated, when the smartphone market gets saturated, and remember, for a company like Apple, all they need to have is a decline of 3, 4, 5% of sales, and all of a sudden, Wall Street says, "What's going on with Apple? What's going on with their profitability? Is this a trend? Okay, so they'll pivot. They know they can sell these phones cheaper. Do they know how much cheaper in order to boost demand? Well, in fact, they do. And later in the course, we'll talk about some of the ways they know. But just knowing that, so if they know that dropping the price 10% is going to boost demand by 25%, that's a no-brainer. That is that's what they do. That's part of running a business. Okay? So moving along, this is really the what we've been talking about. It's the soft side of business. It's these are decisions that are made periodically and reviewed periodically. But when I say periodically, they might be reviewed quarterly or every year. It's not a daily activity. But there is one activity that is a daily activity, and that is monitoring the external environment. Okay, the external environment. Okay, well, now when I talk about the external environment, what I'm really talking about is something that I cannot stress enough to all of you, which is, I know that you're excited about your art. I know what you want to do with your lives. I know what, ideally you probably would love to see, professionally for yourselves. But the people that succeed in business, and we will all be in business, you will be in business just like I wound up in business. The key to all of those people is you have to know things. You have to watch the world around you. The way the world works is the way you spot your opportunities or mitigate your risks. Okay, right now we're in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. There are some companies that didn't see it coming. In fact, most companies didn't see it coming. And what's going on with them? The airlines, they're filled with a lot of smart people, but they didn't see that coming. They weren't prepared. Maybe there's no way they could have been, but let's assume that they could have been. Let's assume that if they had seen this risk coming last November, that they could have taken some steps early. For instance, why did the government have to implement a travel ban? The airlines could have implemented their own travel ban. I know that's a little counterintuitive, but I'm just using it as an extreme example. And so I'm really high for this class on paying attention to the external environment. Now, the external environment has 6 different aspects, and they're all important and they all create opportunities. Let me see if I can do this on the same whiteboard, okay? Number 1, demographic. Okay, demographic. That's basically who we are. Are we old? Are we young? Are we white? Are we black? Are we Asian? Are we Latino? Okay. Demographic, that's who we are. Okay, and it is a very important metric. It's a very important factor in the external environment, especially when you're trying to sell things to the general population. So, as we know with Southern California, it's become a lot more Latino over the last, certainly the last generation. So if you're in the music business, you might want to think about that because that's a market for music. Okay, if you can create something that population would be excited about, then by all means, you go for it. There's an opportunity there. On the labor side, and I've experienced this, we have an aging population. The baby boomers are getting older. Well, guess what? they don't really want to retire if they don't have to. And they make fantastic employees, and they're not that expensive compared to some of those younger people right dead set in the middle of their careers in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so that demographic is valuable to me as a business owner. Likewise, women, the growing female workforce. In what we do in post-production, women are extremely talented, and they're very, very, very good employees. There was a time that women didn't work in sound. It was just such an uninteresting field for them. It's really an uninteresting field for everybody, but it changed. And then for young people, the people that are techie, that are really into technology, well, let's face it, post-production audio, music, you name it, it was made for them. So the demographic side of the external environment has offered many different opportunities as the mix of people to sell to and the mix of people that can work for you has changed. And you need to be aware of it, okay? Number 2, sociological. Sociological is what we do. It's not who we are, but it's what we do. It's how we change our behaviors. And so sociologically, the shift in I'll use my business as the primary example, but sociologically, the shift to video games. Is that a big shift for me? Yes, it is. First of all, it hurts my TV business, and it helps the gaming business if I'm involved in it. So sociological is very important. Sociological also has to do with money. Who has what to spend. There are so many different aspects of sociological. Larger families or smaller families. City dwellers versus suburban dwellers or country dwellers. All of these groups have different responses to the product that you're going to create and market. So it's important to pay attention to what's happening sociologically. A lot of business is sociological, and so we mustn't ever forget that, okay? Right now, something that's going on in our industry has been really the quest for minority talent. So it started with BET, which prefers obviously to work with African Americans, but Netflix has an inclusion mandate. And so it is not unusual for Netflix and other studios to come to us and say, we would like a person of color, or we would like a female as a sound supervisor, or do you have female mixers, or could you hire a female mixer? This is all sociological. And there are companies, and unfortunately I'm not one of them, that were a bit ahead of this curve. And one of my competitors, they have a lot of female mixers. And Technicolor has a African-American mixer who is highly sought after. I wish I had him. So these are things that you need to be watching really in business. These are part of the external environment, okay? Then number 3, economic. Okay, the economic aspect of the external environment. So what does that mean? Well, as a business, are you going to be borrowing money? Oh, you are? Of course you're going to be borrowing money. When do you borrow it? When interest rates are high or when they're low? Oh, you borrow it when they're low. Well, suppose you don't need money at the time that the rates are low. Well, you might want to borrow it anyway. You might want to expand your credit line anyway. You look at various economic incentives that are provided by the government, whether it has to do with taxes or what have you. These are all things that play into the business decisions that you're going to make every single day. Right now, we compete with Canada. We compete with them on almost everything that we do. Netflix does a lot of work with Canada. And so what do we know about Canada? Their dollar is cheaper. They have a 35% tax incentive for the work that's done up there. So what is our response? Well, my response was we bought a company in Atlanta which at least has the 35% tax credit. Okay? These are all part of the economic aspect of the external environment. And you need to be following it on a regular basis. How do you follow it? How do you follow it? Well, today, there's so many ways to follow it, but I'll tell you how I follow it. I read 2 newspapers every morning. I read the Wall Street Journal, which is primarily economic and also conservative. And I read the New York Times, which has a lot of economics and is primarily liberal. That's a good place to start. You need to know what is going on every single day. For instance, what's the stock market going to do? What is the stock market going to do tomorrow? How do you find out? You're going to learn about the Dow futures. You can check the futures the day before the market opens, and it'll tell you probably what the market is going to do on the open. And it'll give you a sense of, okay, what's happening in the economy? And these are things that you need to be paying attention to. They're going to inform other business decisions that you make. Number 4, political. Number 4, well, politics are, I don't need to tell you, we're in a political year. And as you follow the speeches that are given, the rhetoric, the news stories, and all of that, all I can tell you is it's clear that there is a huge difference between the people that are running for office. You have to decide what's going to happen to your business if one wins or the other wins, okay? Regardless of what your political views are, and regardless of who you support, and whether you're a social justice voter or an economic voter, it doesn't matter. You just need to have a good sense of what is likely to happen if this candidate wins or that candidate wins. Because as you see things developing in the election, before the election actually occurs, you may make changes in the way that you make your business decisions. And it's also true that when you're in the motion picture business, when you're in the arts tend to lean a bit more liberal. And so with the emphasis today on social media and the idea that everybody's point of view is out there, and that you have you really can't be public and private at the same time. You have to decide if it's going to be productive for your business to be very vocal in the public square about your views. And beyond that, if you have employees, I've got 100, I've got more than 100, if your employees start to post politically insensitive, or I'll just leave it there, politically insensitive things, that's going to reflect on your company. And it may not actually have anything to do with anything that you personally as the owner of the company think, or that your management team thinks. And so all I'll say is there's a place for politics and there's a place for business. and the two are not normally good bedmates. So be careful about that. That's something I have not really gotten into before, but I've experienced a bit of it this year, and it's very concerning to me. We've had two employees, one on the right and one on the left. One of them got a death threat, and the other one had people approach us because they knew who she worked for, and they demanded that we fire her. So, hey, as a business, you don't need that. It's not worth it. You're not in the business of politics. You're in the business of audio or music or whatever. So be very careful about that. Second to last, the technological sector. Technological. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see that. I can't. Oh, there we go. Technological. Okay, so let's face it. We're in the audio business, and yes, it's about cool sounds for, spaceships and monsters and cars and, guns and you name it. But it's a technology business. It's a technology business, and technology is where you're going to make money. Okay? Now, I can tell you with absolute certainty that without the technological advances and changes that came to our industry over the last decade and a half, we wouldn't be able to be in business today. Okay? This whole concept of working with Pro Tools and working inside the box and the cost, the software-based consoles like the one that's behind me here, has literally made it possible for us to continue in a business that was getting incredibly expensive from the labor perspective. And so today, an episode of a television series, which used to have maybe 8 or 9 editors and then 3 mixers and then a machine room. You probably had a crew on that show of 15 people. Today you're going to have 5. Okay, 5. That's a big difference. And the technology, mixing console used to cost minimum $1 million, and then you had to wire it. So you figured $1.5 million to $2 million per retooling of a console. And today, you can put the most modern technology into your dub stage for about $150,000 to $200,000. That is a game changer. And there are things that are coming about every day in our field. And you just need to be on top of it, because if you can spot something and if you can figure out a way to utilize it for the benefit of your business, you're going to be ahead of the competition because you're paying attention to something that they probably aren't, and you're going to be there first. We're currently in the forefront with this COVID crisis of contact-free ADR. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that when an actor comes to our facility, they can enter the facility and record their lines and never have to interface with another person, and everything that they come in contact with along the way is sanitized and safe. And that one little initiative, which some of our engineers came up with here at the company, is what's getting us through COVID, because there are no studios out there that are doing the same thing. I mean, they all have protocols, but we actually have technology in place in the nature of servo-controlled microphones, so the mixer doesn't have to go in and adjust the mic. So the actor literally has complete privacy, and it's really generated a tremendous amount of business for us in the ADR, on the ADR side. Those are not big dollars, but they're also not big costs. And so in a environment where we don't know when the industry is going to start up again, this could be the game changer that makes it possible for us to make it to the next chapter. And last but not least is, I call this the big enchilada, really. Okay. Okay. Global. Global. Okay. I don't think I have to elaborate too much on that, but let me just say this. We are also in the visual effects business. We're doing a show right now called Gods and Secrets. Our competition for that contract was a company in India. Deluxe, which is a very big post-production company, very big post-production company. They were doing their foreign versioning in India, in China. They had outlets around the world for two reasons. Number one, it is dirt cheap. Number two, when we're sleeping in the U.S., they're awake and working. And so things that we want to see in the morning, we send it at the end of our day. They work through the night, and we have it on our desks the next day. You also have exchange rates. You can produce a movie in Romania for probably a third of what is required in the U.S. And so really we have a global industry in the motion picture industry, but also in the music industry and in the media industry in general. And so you need to watch what's going on globally in order to fully maximize your opportunities as you run your business. Even if it's just a tiny business, you're going to find something in the external environment that's going to be critical to your success. And so I'm going to leave it there for this session. I don't even know if this was a 1 hour. I know we got off to kind of a, scattered start. I was talking about this, that, and the other thing, but let's face it, I don't do this every day. So give me an A for effort. So anyway, there are books that I'm going to ask you to read as part of this class. One of them, I'm just going to tell you what they are. I'll get into them on our Zoom meeting if we have one, or in the next video. The primary book I'm going to need you to acquire is The Content Trap. Okay, now I'm in over my head now because I can't pronounce the name of the author, but it's called The Content Trap. The second book I'm going to ask you to obtain and acquire. It's going to be very critical as we go through this class. It's called The Medium is the Massage. I know you thought I was going to say Message, and that's what the original title was, but there was a typographical error made when it was originally printed back in the 60s, and the author said, I like massage. Let's just call it The Medium is the Massage. I want you to acquire that book. And one last book, which I think is going to be very helpful for all of us as artists, as people that have to decide to sit down and work quietly on our own, away from people, with a certain amount of self-discipline. It's called The One Thing. And The One Thing, it's a great book. It basically is designed to help you answer the focusing question. The focusing question is, what is the one thing that I can do today that will make everything else either less important or unnecessary? I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that until the next time that we have a chance to meet. And I want you to come up with an answer for you. I think that's going to be a very valuable exercise that's going to get you off on, I'm not even going to say the right foot, but it's going to get you off on a different foot than you're currently on. And hey, sometimes different is better, right? So anyway, until next class or until we Zoom, this is Joe Melody signing off. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.